So my objectives for today are really just going over behavior modification, facilitating change. We're going to review some of the ABCs of behavior modification, going into problem solving, goal setting, and talking back negative thoughts. And throughout this presentation, I am going to be asking for some discussion of personal strategies that you all have had to assist yourself in modifying some of your eating and activity behaviors which have allowed you to achieve success along your way of just changing your behaviors. So how are our behaviors shaped? Well, before we really get into that, we have to go over some theories, which is everyone's favorite aspect. So beginning first with the social learning theory. So this goes back to some of y'all's Psych 101 classes, which I know is not that long ago. So social learning theory states that behavior is acquired or learned through interaction with our environment. And this really focuses on the idea of modeling, that people learn through seeing someone else model a positive or negative behavior. An example of a positive behavior would be, oh, I'm stressed, I'm going to go take a 15-minute walk. A negative behavior would be, oh, I'm stressed, I'm going to eat. So modeling that behavior in terms of how we respond to our environment. And then the behavioral learning theory, which comes from the social learning theory, which states behaviors are cued by external events or stimuli, and that consequences of those behaviors shape behaviors, encouraging those behaviors to occur or not occur. So what does all this mean? The background of these two theories really shape the ABCs of facilitating change. So what are these ABCs I keep talking about? So many of you might be familiar with this model, but they are antecedents, our behaviors, and our consequences. A for antecedents, those are the environmental cues, that external stimuli which precedes the behavior or the act, which then causes consequences of the behaviors. So if you notice, this model is not linear, rather it is circular. So let's bring this back home and see how we can make this a little more personal. But let's get into what are these antecedents I'm really talking about here. So the antecedents, we're going to go back and talk about these external environmental cues. And the best way to do this is through the archaic example of classical conditioning by Pavlov. So Pavlov believed that there's an idea that there are some things that dogs they don't need to learn. It is a natural reflex. You put food in front of a dog like you do in front of a human. You don't have to teach us to salivate when we see food or become hungry. It's an automatic reflex, same as with the dog. So Pavlov wanted to see if he could condition or teach the dog to salivate, not by seeing the food, but rather by using something else, some other type of stimuli. So he used a bell as a neural stimulus. He taught the dog through conditioning by pairing initially the bell with the food to salivate on that response. And therefore, at the end of the experiment, he had removed the food, and just by using the bell, he had triggered the dog to salivate. So thus, he had conditioned or taught the dog that this process of salivating can be done with just a neural stimulus, that being a bell. So what does this mean for us? Well, we too can be conditioned just like the Pavlovian dog. So how many of you have known someone who, when they sit down to watch TV, they automatically start eating, or within 10 to 15 minutes of sitting down to watch TV, they then go get something to eat? So, all right. So basically, we have been conditioned to use that antecedent, that being the TV, we have paired it with food. We see the TV, we then pair it with that food, we're then going to eat. It then leads to that, oh my goodness, that consequence of I just ate, that weight gain that we're trying to avoid. So going through the ABCs and looking at this a little more systematically is a person sits down to eat while watching TV. They would identify that antecedent as the TV with the food nearby, triggers the behavior, that being the eating. They then get the unwanted consequence of the weight gain. So to modify the goal of changing the behavior, we then have to stop something along this continuum to stop the consequences of the weight gain. So if we're watching TV, take away the food nearby, it would then eliminate that behavior of eating, which would then eliminate that consequence of weight gain. I've dealt with a lot of patients who dealing with, this is a huge problematic behavior. They just see the TV and they have that automatic pairing. Working with patients to say, okay, well, what is it? What can we do to change or really break this cycle of events to not lead to this weight gain? Many times it's just doing things with our hands, sitting down, brainstorming with clients or patients and saying, well, what if you cut coupons, if you're a coupon cutter? Definitely folding laundry. Some patients have taken up crocheting and knitting just to really break that habit and that conditioned response of that pairing the TV with food. So now that we've gone over the antecedent and really defined what that is in this cycle, let's get into our the B's and the C's of behavior and the consequences. So our behavior to the antecedents is shaped often by modeling and observational learning. And I did a lot of work back at UT working with my advisor, and her research was in a lot of behavior modification, both at the personal level, and we did a lot of family-based interventions. So modeling is key with children and family-based interventions. What can we get the parent to do and really be involved to show those proper modeling behaviors for the child, the observer? So modeling is a direct teaching of a certain behavior. So a parent who values physical activity, they'll model that value by incorporating physical activity into their daily life. Whereas the child being learning from observational learning, we'll see mom, dad, they value being physically active. I too should value being physically active in my daily life. And then moving on to the consequences comes from operant conditioning and the law of effect, that behaviors are changed by consequences, and consequences, they drive many behaviors, either increasing or decreasing the occurrence of those behaviors. So there are two types of consequences that we really work with, and they are positive consequences and negative consequences. The positive consequences, they have two: positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. So positive reinforcement is having something desirable achieved for our efforts. So you're on this goal of weight loss and someone tells you, hey, you look good. That positive reinforcement, that praise. Hey, what are you doing? What have you really changed? Wow, I can really tell that you're happier and you look good. It's that praise, that positive reinforcement that we hear. And then negative reinforcement is removal of a negative stimulus to strengthen a behavior. So this one's a little more challenging, but you intend to go to the gym after work or during lunch, but you didn't make it because you're tired or you forgot your gym clothes. Therefore, you want to remove that negative stimulus, that being not going to the gym, and thus, in order to do that, you pack your clothes the night before and put them into your car. That is a way of negative reinforcement. And then negative consequences to decrease the behavior, the likelihood in events, and those two come in the form of negative consequences. So those of you who have kids, in terms of punishment, you're probably experts at that. And then there's, of course, extinction, which is just ignoring the problematic behavior. And really with family-based intervention, and even at the personal level and dealing one-on-one with patients, it is best, and the research has shown that positive reinforcement and extinction are the two most effective means of facilitating behavior change. So now that we have reviewed the ABCs, we're going to go into some strategies for changing the overall environment that triggers those, again, the behaviors which lead to the consequences. So just to pose another question. Do any of you all have any eating or activity behaviors that you all have modified or found to be helpful in terms of modifying your environment to help you with some behavior modification? Anything you've done in your home or your workplace to help you change any of your eating or activity behaviors?
I have all like vegetables up in little snack bags each week for the week, so that you're, when you cut them up on Sunday, you got them all cut up and done. You don't have to do it every day at the same time. I didn't really think of it as a behavioral change.
And it takes a lot of pre-planning, which we're going to go into. So yes, that's great. So it is, our environment does shape our behaviors. So really working with patients and how can we modify our behaviors to modify our environment to really optimize our behaviors is really what we like to work with. In some way to just modify eating behaviors. And a big one that I struggle with, is this a pointer? Yeah, it is. So is eating away from the desk or the computer. I know that when I'm sitting down and trying to study, I have a big exam the next day, I think, oh, I can do all my meals in front of my computer because I think I'm going to be more efficient looking at my notes while I'm trying to eat whatever it is I'm eating. And it is a failure. So really trying to encourage people and patients to move away and separate themselves from whatever they're working on to really focus then on eating, because it really does pull you away to pay attention to your overall hunger cues and your satiety cues. And as we all know, eating is a big social experience. Whenever you travel anywhere, I haven't met one person to not say, when I go here, I want to try X food. It's a social experience, it's a cultural experience. If we have time during our day, I know we're all busy, but getting around coworkers, planning a time to really sit down, remove ourselves from any type of other work and focus on our eating to really pay attention to those hunger cues. As Tanya said, preparing fruits and vegetables at the beginning of the week, putting them in the front of the refrigerator so you see those automatically when you open the fridge instead of something else. Having a fruit bowl out on the table, if that's possible. I know Arizona gets a little hot. Packing lunches the night before to avoid having to run out to go get something, and then removing problematic foods from the home. This is, again, a big one, and we're really working with patients. One of the biggest things is, I love potato chips, okay, but I know when I have them, I eat the whole bag. All right, so how can we work on that? Well, what if and some people even having the single servings, they're like, it doesn't even matter if I have the single serving bags, I'll just keep going after them. Okay, well obviously that's a problematic food. So what about removing it from your environment? Well, that would be hard, but at least it wouldn't be there to tempt you. And so working with clients and overall patients on how can we really modify their environment to really assist with their behaviors. And then leisure time physical activity. Simple things as placing your walking shoes in front of the front door. So that way, if you are waking up in time to exercise, go for that quick walk. That hopefully those shoes will be a cue to say, hey, I need to walk. Putting your gym bag into the car the night before, that way it's there and there's no excuse as to, oh, I forgot my gym clothes. I can't go walk during lunch. I can't go after work. Having a walking buddy is always good just for that overall motivator, and then planning physical activities that the whole family can enjoy. So with changing the environment, it does take a lot of problem solving, pre-planning, and goal setting. So moving now into problem solving. Problem solving is a systematic method for analyzing problems and identifying possible solutions. And it's done using a 5-step method. And this method is often done a lot in family-based interventions because it is a way to get the entire family on board, but it is also very effective at the personal level. So the 5 steps of problem solving are: 1, assess the problem. 2, brainstorm solutions. 3, compare the solutions. 4, develop a plan. And 5, evaluate. So just to take, for example, my goal is weight loss, and the obstacles, say, preventing me from reaching this goal are there are too many sweets brought to the workplace. All right, so let's identify some solutions to help fix this. So what would you all say? If there are too many sweets brought to the workplace and this is preventing you from achieving your goal, what would you do to help modify that? Okay, substitute for the sweets. By what? Because you have your other coworkers coming in and they're bringing the sweets. So what do you mean by substitute? Chocolate only. Depends if you're talking dark or milk. So, all right, so we have a substitute. Any other ideas? Avoid the area, exactly. So some solutions that you can do is, one, avoid the area where they're located. If they're located in that faculty lounge area or in the front lobby where students like to sell their sweets, you know, maybe just to avoid that temptation, don't go through the front lobby, come in through that back area. Or don't go, you know, like, oh, sorry, I just have to avoid this area because I just know it's too tempting. Another one could be just telling your coworkers of, hey, this is my goal. So that way if they offer you something, if they see you avoiding that area, they don't think you're being rude to them. You're just, hey, this is what I'm really trying to achieve and I really need this for me. And you've explained your goals to them. Compare the solution. So this cost-benefit analysis. You know, it is a lot of pressure to say, ooh, do I really want to run the risk of telling my coworkers I'm on this weight loss goal? What if I don't achieve it? I have this goal of X pounds by X day. That's a lot of pressure. So maybe that's not the best one. Is it possible to truly avoid the area where they're located? Can I not come through that front door? Can I avoid that area where they're located just to assist you? And then encouraging healthier options. So we had one gentleman offered, say, switching out something else, switching it with other things. So what if we said, we went to the department chair and said, hey, I think we just need healthier options. Well, maybe that is a good solution because then you wouldn't be tempted to, then you wouldn't have to avoid that area. Then those sweets wouldn't be brought in, and then you wouldn't have to avoid that area. You wouldn't have to tell people of your weight loss goal, and it would really benefit the rest of your coworkers. So maybe that's our best option. So after we develop a solution, we then have a plan. So from that plan, we say, okay, this is a solution I'm going to use. We're going to define a criterion for success and then have a time frame. So that criterion for success, what is that? It's usually an objective measure, saying I plan to lose 10 pounds by June 2nd. That criterion is that objective measure, the 10 pounds, that time frame, June 2nd. And then we evaluate. So over time, by offering this solution of saying, hey, we're going to bring healthier options, is that helping you achieve your goal? And then if so, great, continue. If not, let's go through the steps again. And this is something that we do go through with patients a lot is, hey, this is my problem and this is what I need to do. Okay, let's sit down, let's really brainstorm some solutions. And it is very helpful to a lot of patients. This is a form that often is used, and this is what we actually give patients when we're sitting down initially in the beginning to really go through and help them identify their behaviors. And this is just going back, an example of one that's kind of written on. So helping someone, their goal to assist them in their weight loss is packing a lunch and then setting the days they will do that, how they will go about it. So I will do this first. Identifying roadblocks. It's very big, really initially in someone who has come saying, hey, this is my goal and this is what I'm really trying to do, because it helps you pre-plan, okay, if X comes up, how can I then solve for the solution? And so this action plan is very, very effective for problem solving. And this is just the form that we give them, and they often come back to us and we review it with them and going through it and seeing if they were successful in being able to problem solve. And if not, going through how can they be more successful with it. So with problem solving and overall behavior modification, goal setting is most important. And with goal setting, goal setting is done on day one with patients, and we really like them to identify not only their goals, but it allows us to say, what is our end point, and how can we really help you achieve whatever it is, whether it's weight loss, whether it's I need to learn to check my blood sugars because I'm afraid my numbers are always high and it just scares me to prick myself. Or my grandfather and my father both died of heart attacks and I really need to get my cholesterol under control. All right, so let's set some goals. And with goals, it is best that they are positive, specific, something under control, that they have a time limit, they're small enough to reach, they're broken into small steps, and they're related to reward. And this reward system, where's this guy? This reward system is very big. So positive, so really setting goals to really say, here I just have some examples for you all. Instead of people saying, I will stop eating so much. All right, well, let's say, how about planning dinner menus that are 500 calories? Setting a time limit, very important. I will lose 2 pounds. All right, well, is that 2 pounds in a year? Is that 2 pounds in 2 years? 2 pounds in 10 years? Let's be a little more specific here. So I'll lose 2 pounds by June 15th. Something under your control is very challenging and takes a lot of brainstorming, and with family-based interventions, it's best when we get the whole family involved. That way they're all on board. And I really think that a lot of weight loss problems would be, it seems as if they're always blamed on either the children or the partner. It's always what you hear first. So one is being, I will get my husband to stop eating ice cream. A little challenging. Instead, what can you control, hopefully, is I will stop buying cartons of ice cream and ask my husband to only eat ice cream when he eats out. And then related to reward. So instead of saying, I will pack my lunch 3 times this week, make it reward-based. I will buy a copy of my favorite magazine if I pack my lunch 3 times this week. So going over goal setting. And then this is just a form that we like to give patients to. That way when they are on their own and they are making their own goals for, like, say, the next week, they can plan out and go through this exercise for themselves, modifying their goals. Because although it is, we eventually want to, like any healthcare provider, you want to assist the client initially, but you want to teach them the proper skills. That way they can exercise them on their own. So, and going now into the behavior. So what is very important in goal setting, because goal setting does lead to behavior modification, is overall, how do we monitor our behaviors? And self-monitoring is key and is the gold standard in behavior modification. Self-monitoring comes in the forms of calories, physical activity, screen time, so TV watching, and weight. The biggest problem, as we all know, with monitoring dietary habits is it is self-reported, which is not very reliable or valid. Which makes it a challenge, but it's all we have right now. Good thing about physical activity data is it is more objective, which is easier because you can put on a pedometer. Hey, I did X amount of steps this week, I met my goal. Then you have your apps for the phone. I was able to do X amount of miles, X amount of minutes, I met my goal, which is truly beneficial to the client because it does provide the feedback on self-monitoring, which is very important. And it's also most important to tie the weight change to their behavior change to demonstrate this relationship between their behaviors and their weight. Hey, you changed X behavior by getting X amount of minutes of physical activity in. Look what is, look at the progress you've made. So it's very important for them. And then, do any of you all, this is a food diary, and have any of you all kept a food diary? Yeah. Were they this specific? Yeah. So making sure that, in just reviewing with patients in keeping food diaries, it is very important that they are very specific. And it does take a lot of time initially because you're going through, you're like, oh, I never realized that it takes this much time to really measure out the food, because you're measuring how much is that 1 cup, or, well, how much is that Pop-Tart? Well, Pop-Tart frosting, 200 calories. It takes a lot of time to not only really take the time to look at what you're eating, but also write it down at the same time. But it is very effective because it allows both you and the client to really go through and identify some problematic behaviors, and where they can make behavior changes along the way, and then praise them for the behavior changes that they have made. So, along with a food record is also a physical activity record, and these are most successful, definitely with family-based, and when kids, they love these and they usually decorate them. They're more pediatric specific, but with stickers and other things to show their overall physical activity for the week, and then encouraging them to put it in somewhere that is very communal within the home, so usually on the refrigerator, to show people of their progress, and then having that reward at the end, whether it's time spent, whether it's praise, it's having a friend over, but something to show, hey, look what I've done for my efforts. And then this goes into the consequences. So how are our behaviors being reinforced? Is it through praise? Is it that verbal praise? Hey, you've done a great job. You hit your physical activity minutes for the week. With kids, is it a reward system, a point system, a contingency contracting, and then extinction for problematic behaviors? So ignoring the behaviors that are the most, that are not being beneficial to the behavior change. So that part really goes through overall how are behaviors modified, how are they reinforced. Now I'm going to go through what is probably one of the most challenging but yet rewarding working with patients is dealing with taking back negative thoughts. So I know that it is one of the hardest things is you're on this new plan and it's challenging because all of a sudden you have a slip up, something happens, and you have this negative thought that enters your mind, and it's like, I'll never be able to do this. Look at this awful thing I did. This is impossible. I can't do it. So working with clients, and definitely that cognitive reframing, saying, okay, well, first letting them get it out. If you try, learn that the hard way. If you try to interrupt them, it's terrible. So letting them get out what they want to say, making sure they're completely done, and then interjecting, okay, let's move into and say, how can we really get you back on track to continue our goal. So it is very important to teach patients how they can reframe their negative thoughts into positive thoughts, because as we all know, our psyche is very important in preventing us from reaching our goals. So these negative thoughts are often the result of expecting to be perfect in terms of eating and activity behaviors, or shifting the responsibility for not eating or being active to someone or something else. So teaching the patient to take responsibility for their own choices, saying, let them get it out, but then at the same time, kind of incognito, saying, well, take responsibility for those choices, but let's move on. And then the negative thoughts, they do not need to result in unhealthy eating activity behaviors, and knowing that it is important to recognize that it's us who get to decide how to respond to the negative thoughts. And so some common negative ways of thinking, if people come in and it's an either all or none approach, seeing yourself as a success or failure. I did all my minutes of physical activity today, I am good. I did not do all my minutes of physical activity this week, I missed 30 minutes because my son's soccer practice, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. Should. This word is commonly used also. So you're expecting yourself to be perfect. Well, that's a challenge, because then no one's perfect and you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Not as good as comparing yourself to someone else, also a challenge, and it becomes more of a competition, which is a good thing, but can also be very challenging. Having excuses, so blaming someone or something else for your problems, and then giving up at the end and feeling defeated. So although it may seem silly, going through with patients and having them really write down and teaching them how to talk back those negative thoughts is really important, because it's, again, we want them to be successful in the future, and we won't be with them hopefully the entire time. So what can they themselves do to help talk back and really work on that cognitive reframing? So some examples of this being good or bad. I didn't walk today, I'll never get in shape. Instead thinking, okay, it's one slip up, I can get back on track, not a big deal. Making excuses, I just don't have the willpower. Maybe saying, all right, it's hard to change our old habits, but let's give this a try and see what we can do. So enforcing to patients that it's not going to be one time that you overindulge or you miss your physical activity that is going to cause you to completely just not achieve your goal. What is most important is saying, how can we take those problematic behaviors and change them? And that's what we really try to work on. And that's what going through, this is just a this is just a blank form that we give patients to work on, is going through with patients and really working with them to say, all right, these are the problematic behaviors that are coming up. What can we do to really help you change them? Is it taking back your negative thoughts? Is it changing the environment? You know, what is it that we can change throughout our day to help us most successful to reach our goal at the end? So for the objectives, hopefully I have identified the behaviors of facilitating change and reviewing the ABCs of behavior change. We've gone over problem solving, goal setting, talked a little bit about taking back negative thoughts, and hopefully tried to have a discussion of personal strategies of goal setting and weight loss maintenance. And here are my references. And who has the first question? Yes.
So when you know all this, and you keep trying, and you do it, and you still have difficulty attaining goal.
Eating what?
Attaining your goal. Maybe you make it, and then all of a sudden you slide back, and then you make it, you slide back, and ultimately you just start negatively reinforcing yourself as you're planning and making your goal. What do you suggest for that?
Then I think there's actually something along the way of achieving your goal, that initial problem that wasn't identified.
What if it's a time issue?
Ah.
Literally, you just can't find a specific time. You plan, you put all the stuff out there, and something constantly interferes with being able to go to it.
And that is a challenge.
For activity.
For
Modify your food, that's one thing, but activity.
And that is a challenge, and it is really what I found to be the most successful is when you have built the rapport with that patient, you go through their day, every day. You go through the week, every hour of every day, and you point out, hey, you know, I know that in the morning you're getting your kids ready for school. All right, well, that takes up your entire morning. And then you rush off to work. And then you're stuck at work. And then you have to eat at your desk because you were just slammed with 10 other things. And you didn't get to the gym. And then right after work, you have to go pick up your kids because they have X, Y, and Z soccer practices. And then all of a sudden you're running home because you have to do dinner. And then by the time it's, you know, kids are in bed, they're fine. You're catching up on work, say, it's 10:30. Oh my gosh, where's my day gone? That is a challenge, and it's finding what can be done. Maybe at that soccer practice, it's putting your shoes in the car. Would you have time to get a 30-minute walk-in while one kid is at soccer practice, but say, oh, that'd be challenging because I have a 2-year-old, put him in the stroller. Is it possible for that? Put the kid in the stroller. So it's working with patients in their day-to-day, breaking up hour by hour to sit and really fit in those minutes. And then also talking to them, well, reorganizing their day. Well, I know I can, if I can get my husband to do this, or my partner to do this, then it'll allow me to get those X amount of minutes in and change. So that's when bringing that spouse or partner in is most effective. But the time issue is very much a challenge, and it is one that is constantly being worked on.
I find that the number one thing that patients sometimes will just say, I just physically can't do it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And then I would also throw the argument out there that it does depend on the type of patient and the motivation of that patient, because some patients will make it work, depending on what it is. I've dealt with a lot of really just some people who it's an all or nothing approach. My father just died of a heart attack. My grandfather died of a heart attack. I have high cholesterol. This is what needs to be done, and we work with it. So patients do come in all shapes and sizes, as we all know. Yes.
I would say that, once you break your leg and you have to have rehab, you make time to do that rehab, or you make time to do that, or you have that first heart attack, and then you have time to go exercise. And we all need to invest in ourselves and take that time. You're worth it. You are worth it to take that half hour, 45 minutes, to take that time, because you are the center of your family. So take that time, whether it's 15-minute walk of a morning, midday, and 15 of an afternoon. Take that time for yourself. You deserve it. You're worth it. Other questions?
All right. So, just
Thank you so much, Britt. Do you have anything else?